If you're here to join the session, Young Women Leading the Way, you're in the right place. Come in and grab a seat. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Stakeholders, something called the YOUAccess Fund, and it affords PAI the opportunity to channel financial resources, technical assistance, capacity building, and collaboration and partnership to groups around the world who are looking to bolster youth engagement and to increase their country's commitment to youth involvement and meaningful engagement. These small grants that we've distributed through the YOUAccess Fund are right now active in these countries: Kenya, Ethiopia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Uganda, Tanzania, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal. An amazing collection of countries, of experiences, and most importantly, of youth leadership and organizations. Some of the successes that we've been able to experience thus far from our YOUAccess Fund include the development of a youth engagement strategy done in partnership with the Ministry of Health in Ethiopia. We've also seen important advances in youth policy with various ministries across the government in Uttar Pradesh. We've also trained, importantly, budget advocates in Tanzania, so young people who know how to read their district and national government budgets, and they know how to advocate for spending line items that are related to their sexual and reproductive health, and importantly, how to expend those line items so that we're getting the services that have been sort of financed and promised. This morning, we're going to speak with 3 of our YOUAccess partners and grantees. These wonderful individuals on the stage with me. I'm going to start immediately to my left, and this is Sudi. She's from the Women's Promotion Center based in Kenya. They're going to tell you more about the work of their organizations and sort of who they are as leaders, so I won't go into extensive bios now. I'd much rather you hear it from their much more powerful voices. Next to her, we have Natasha with Copper Rose, based in Zambia. And on the far side, we've got Yordi, who is with the Talent Youth Association in Ethiopia. And our format for this morning is to start on stage with a couple of questions that we've populated ahead of time, thought a little bit about the story that we want to get across and share with all of you, and we'll do that for about a half the session. And then we'd like to turn it all to you, and we'd like your questions for our young leaders on stage, asking them about their journey, their challenges, their obstacles, and their opportunities. And then at the end, I'm going to direct you to PAI's booth, number 24, where we have a number of great resources, including a handbook that includes more question and answer with many of our youth leaders, some of them featured here, and then some who are not with us at this ICFP conference, but whose stories are important. So to start off, and we're going to go in, sort of kind of a varied order, just to make sure you all get a chance at being first with the mic. The first question I think we talked about a couple of days ago was what sort of brought you to the work that you're doing right now at your organization? Both a personal reflection of why you were first catalyzed and inspired by the work of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and how that's informed your professional journey, either starting your own organization, the training that you've received. Sort of tell us a little bit about what brings you here to this stage in Rwanda. And Sudi, I'll start with you.
By introducing myself, my name is Christine Sudi and I work with the Women Promotion Center. We are based in Nairobi and work with young women in the informal settlements. And I would say our key role is to bring young women together so that we are able to talk about issues affecting us and for us. And mostly we deal with the marginalized, vulnerable women. And we try to push away the retrogressive, unsafe sexual, cultural that behaviors that are back in our society. I would say what brought me to start working with young women is I was born and raised up in Nairobi informal settlements, one of the informal settlements. And the major challenge I would say is that most of the time we'd find that we're not able to freely talk to maybe our parents, our older sisters, or the relatives that are around in terms of our sexual reproductive health. And it was like a taboo even when you start your menses and you cannot even tell anyone about it. You're scared and you have to use some funny things because you hide yourself. And it was so bad for me, that's what I would say. And I felt that this should not happen to anyone else. You'd find that, I remember very well, there's a friend of mine, my neighbor, and we grew up with, and she lost her life because she got pregnant and she had to procure an unsafe abortion, and due to the bleeding and stuff like that, she lost her life. So when I think about all this and when I finished my education and went to university, I started feeling that I need to work with young people back in my place to be able to redeem them from that cocoon that they are in.
Thank you for that story. I was in Kenya in June, and Sudi and I and another colleague went in many places in Nairobi, and I was able to see sort of in real time the amazing depth of partnership and collaboration that the Women's Promotion Center has built. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So Natasha, tell us a bit about your story and how you came to Copper Rose.
So my name is Natasha Kaoma from Zambia. I'm based in Lusaka. My story really starts from high school, but so I'm working with Copper Rose Zambia. But my passion for working with young people started when I was in high school, when I noticed my friends start her period and have to leave class. So the first work I did in activism and advocacy was on menstrual hygiene. And later when I got into university, we started Copper Rose. It initially started as a menstrual hygiene organization, and we used to collect sanitary napkins. We started from our campus, collected $300, and started to give out pads to girls so that they could attend school. It was then that we realized that the young people in Zambia have a lot of needs. And right now, Copper Rose is doing work on sexual and reproductive health in line with advocacy, social behavioral change communication, as well as service provision. But we're also working on youth engagement and women's leadership and working with adolescent girls and young women. And the name Copper Rose really is a plight for women to be appreciated as much as copper is. Because unlike copper, which is a diminishing resource, which is our biggest export in Zambia, women are a non-diminishing resource, and that's really what we're about.
Well said. And tell me, Natasha, about your academic pursuits right now, because they're very much related to the work that you're doing at Copper Rose.
I just graduated last year with a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, so I'm a medical doctor. And I'm looking into getting into public health work, so I will definitely be heading that direction. But I feel like for a long time I've already been doing public health work, and that's really where my passion is, making a difference, because I feel like public health has an opportunity to impact thousands of lives in a short period of time.
That's right. We're lucky to have you in the movement.
Thank you.
So Yordi from the Talent Youth Association, give us a bit of a snapshot of how you're here joining us today.
Hi. As she said, I'm Yordi. Officially, my name is Yordanos, but I really prefer Yordi, so please stick to that. I'm from Talent Youth Association, but my personal journey with sexual reproductive health begins at a very, very young age. In our neighborhood, I come from the slums of Addis, so we kept losing a lot of people to HIV, and it was obvious that we had to be working on HIV. So this was the European millennium, and I was 6 years old when I first gave my sexual reproductive health training. Since then, I've joined school clubs, clubs in my neighborhood, which were started up by the government, started up another club in my school, and drafted my first project at the age of 14. With a bunch of friends, teachers, as well as professionals from the government that wanted to do a lot of work. So we drafted our first project, which helped 5 children who were orphaned by HIV. And it was sustainable, and it's still ongoing. Our first kid is about to graduate from high school now. So, yay. Yeah, and then afterwards I joined the medical school, and I was the standing committee of reproductive health and AIDS in medical school. So we also had a different project where we had a women economic empowerment project where we realized students in the health field, girls, were actually working on sex work because of economic issues. So we joined the force for about 3 weeks. We realized that this was the issue, and so we started selling sanitary pads and mobile cards from their locker rooms. So another project that was very successful. And then I joined Talent Youth Association when I was in campus. I realized, okay, this is what Taya does. Was close to my heart, so here I am.
Perfect, thank you. And from those answers, we, as promised, continued with some of the storytelling from this morning. And I like how each of you has a very kind of hyper-local start to the work that you did. And I think any of us who are in this space as advocates in our own work remember kind of looking around our own community, our own neighborhood, our own school, and being moved by some issue that we wanted to change and see different. And you each have turned that into your life's career and journey thus far. So thinking about the specific work of your organizations, and yesterday or 2 days ago we sat over breakfast and kind of mapped out today's session, and I think it was you, Natasha, who said, enough of all this negativity on stage, enough of like all that's wrong and doesn't work and sort of what we haven't achieved in terms of progress. Let's instead talk about what works. Let's talk about success. Let's talk about accomplishments. And so I promised that the first question was going to be that. Give me a specific example or two of what has worked well in your organization, something concrete and tangible that members of the audience can take back home to their own experience and possibly apply to the work that we're doing. And this time I'm going to start in the middle. So Natasha, you get to kick this one off.
What has worked very well for Copper Rose is engagement of young people. Copper Rose right now has more than 100 volunteers from across the country. And what we are doing is that we've worked with our volunteers in community action teams. So the community action teams run their own programs and they run their own activities in various subjects. The community action teams are peer educators, youth advocates, advocates for family planning, advocates for different programs that we're doing, including child marriage. And what they do is that they go out in their communities and teach people about comprehensive sexuality education. Some of the community action teams have focus areas to provide services. Some of the community action teams go on radio and use radio as a tool to implement change. So that has worked very well for us because we've seen that we're able to do a lot more in a short time. When people come to us, they're like, how many staff do you have? And then they compare how many people we've been able to reach. It's because we are meaningfully engaging young people, and that's what I've seen works. Also, with our community action teams, we're allowing young people to volunteer because sometimes some of our organizations are so big that a young person has no role to play. Maybe they can come for a conference and speak, but on the day-to-day runnings of the work that you're doing, it's very hard for them to be a part of it, and that's what Copper Rose is doing differently.
Okay, so not only making a lot of opportunities for volunteers to join and sort of help with the work, but also making volunteer opportunities easy to access, easy to get engaged, and easy for young people to do when they're balancing other parts of their lives, including pursuing their education and possibly also working. So ways of making it easy to get involved. So next to Yordi, what's worked well?
It's actually really similar. It's
Great.
Youth engagement. It's a youth-led organization. TAIA is a youth-led organization, and we also have a youth council, which is where I started off as well, which is the voluntary opportunities, which first bombards young people with capacity building, because you can't just go on and start doing what you're supposed to do if you don't know what you're supposed to do or how. And it's worked in a way that it's not, we're based in Addis, but we don't have youth volunteers just in Addis. We work in different regions, and within those regions we have young people that are interested in working with other young people, and their interest is the only thing that we require. And afterwards you get trained, and eventually it's them that get to draft their own projects, because they know what's happening in their communities better than any one of us can, which is a huge issue whenever you work with any organization. It comes from top to bottom, where you're told, okay, this is what needs to be done, and now you have to do it. But with our youth council, it starts from the bottom, and they tell you that this is what we want to do, and then make it happen. And since we've been doing such wonderful work in showing them that, okay, now you're capacitated enough to be doing your own projects, they have expanded so far. Some of them work on migration all alone. We work on sexual reproductive health, and that's the only aspect that we know. But they expand enough to work on migration, unemployment, and any issue that they believe is relevant. So this has been able to feed into becoming a more impactful work, because at the end of the day, it impacts their sexual reproductive health as well.
Right.
So it's been really useful.
That's a great example. So this is the second time that Yordi has made an example that really gets at this intersectionality. And so an important reminder in all of our work, but I think especially in the work that we're doing with young people, that we're balancing a lot of competing needs at once, and all of these issues are interrelated and impacting their lives simultaneously. And so I admire that part of Talent Youth Association's response is to take the whole being, the holistic person, and try to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights within that larger framework. So Sudi, tell me what's working well with the Women's Promotion Center.
What is working for us, just as my colleagues have said, is engaging the youth more. But what I've seen is that, like in Kenya, we have so many policies in place, but what is lacking is the implementation of the policies. So what we started doing, or what is working for us, is making the youth aware of their rights and building the passion and the interest, so that when someone sits down there at home, they know that they have a right to access sexual reproductive health. They have a right to access information. They should be aware that when someone is going against what they're supposed to be received, they can talk and get assistance. So that is what is really working for us. And also getting the young women and also the men on board is really working for us, because in our own small capacity, we are able to talk and advocate, but if you have more people in their own environment talking and advocating for the same issues, I think in the long run we'll have more achieved.
That's a great example. Thank you. So now we get a chance to talk about successes, and Sudi, you sort of paved the way for this question and kind of reasons to celebrate. So I'd love for each of you to give us, you've talked about what worked, so what have those successful tactics led to? Give me a concrete example of something that your organization has won or achieved. Maybe it's a policy win, maybe it's the development of a new youth-friendly center, something specific and concrete. And this time I'm starting with you, Yordi, on the end.
I'm glad you did. We've been very successful in being appointed, would it be the right word? But getting to be able to develop a youth engagement strategy, which is still in the works, hopefully will be completed soon. But so the government has done wonderful work in drafting a national adolescent and youth health strategy, as opposed to just a sexual reproductive health strategy, which used to be how it worked. But now it has a more holistic approach as well, which works on education and drug use, mental health, unemployment, everything that would affect a young person's life to eventually impact a young person's sexual reproductive health. But in it states that young people need to take ownership for this strategy to be implemented. And that's where we asked how. So with that, we were then assigned to do a youth engagement strategy, which is supposed to feed into this holistic approach of getting the strategy implemented. So now we're working on developing this, but with, of course, the full support of the government and donors, and of course, how we're going to be able to hold our government accountable with it. So it seems like a great win to have young people to strategically part of the strategy working on getting it implemented. So I feel like it's a great win for us.
That's great, and that was a great follow-on to Sudi's point of we can have all the great policies on the book, but if we aren't looking at ways to implement them meaningfully, they are meaningless. So a great example, and I love that you've got not only the development of a youth policy that really takes young people in their kind of entirety, in their complexity, but then you have the opportunity for youth to then develop a strategy for what implementation of that comprehensive policy will look like. So back to this side now. You know the order that I'm going in now. You can predict. Sudi, give us a concrete success, a win in Women's Promotion Center's recent history.
Oh, while working with the Women Promotion Center recently through the YOUAccess Fund, we are able to do a lot of lobbying with government officials, and we've been working with young leaders, because at the moment we enjoy having few legislators who are young, and so they are pro-youth policies, and we've been having sessions to have the government to implement the National AIDS, Adolescent and Youth Sexual Reproductive Health Policy. And what we've noted is that we've seen the government has started setting up safe places for young people in the local health centers. So that's a win for us, because we see that the government at least has the goodwill to do some of these things, even though it's taking time, but we still have to celebrate the small wins. Yes.
And we talked about that at our breakfast a couple of days ago, how, advocates, we rarely get everything that we want because we dream big and we have high aspirations. But we were reminding each other as advocates that it's important to circle back with our policymakers and our decision makers and to congratulate them for the achievements, even though we know that it's not the full journey. So we say thank you for policy win A, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you on policy wins B through Z over the next several years. And so I think your point is important, to celebrate the wins that we achieve and use that as a building block for what's to come next. Natasha, Copper Rose, concrete win or success that you'd like to share with the crowd?
Throughout this conference, we've been talking about what superpower we have.
Yeah.
And I would like to say Copper Rose's superpower is getting things done. So we get things done. And some of the successes I would like to share is, first of all, we have gotten ourselves a seat at the table. As a youth-led organization, sometimes it's not very easy to get into these technical working group meetings, into these high-level meetings, but in line with sexual and reproductive health, especially for adolescents and young people, Copper Rose is one of the youngest organizations in these high-level meetings, and that has given us a platform to speak on behalf of young people, and that has given us a voice. One other thing that I'm happy about that I would like to share is that We started running a youth-friendly space in the last 6 months, and in the last 6 months, we have at least 1,000 clients at the center every month. And that's a huge success. But also, being able to provide services has given us a bigger voice in advocacy because, for example, in the last few meetings in the district technical working group, we didn't have commodities at the youth-friendly space, and what we were able to do is to get commodities from other nearby districts into the district where we work. And you can only do that. It's not very easy to do that, and I'm really happy that we were able to. So some commodities were moved from some districts which had a surplus into the district where we needed them. And sometimes it's these little things that we are happy about that we can say has worked very well.
I think that's more than a little thing, and I love to hear youth organizations getting involved in the more technical issues like supply chain and distribution, so congratulations on that. And wouldn't we like to give all of those policymakers that superpower of getting things done? So hopefully they can model Copper Rose's approach. Maybe one of my last questions before we turn it to the audience, so get ready with some of your own questions for our incredible panel. Let's think a little bit about some of the more marginalized portions of the youth community and what it means to work on either some of the tougher issues, the more polarizing issues, working with young people who are living with disabilities. You mentioned, Yordi, young people who are living with mental health issues. Talk a little bit about something that your organization has done to sort of really reach the hardest to reach within the youth population in your communities. And I think this time I start back at the beginning with Sudi, if you'd like to kick that one off.
Okay, I would say that our organization has been working with young women, but among the young women, we realize that we have the teenage mothers who most of the time are single mothers, and that's a further marginalization among the women because in society they are more stigmatized and maybe their rights are more like denied because of the fact that they are mothers. So we've been working with them, specifically focusing on how to get them more empowered in terms of if they got pregnant while they're still in school, how they go back to school, and how we ensure that they're able to still, because you know in Kenya you can go back to school just to do the exams, but you're not allowed to sit in class and maybe study throughout the period with your fellow students. So we try to maybe we can do tuition for them, do like a group tuition for them during maybe holidays and stuff like that. So that as much as they are single mothers, single teenage mothers that are out of school, when they do that exam, they're able to do it well and succeed because as much as because if the government denies you the access to education by not allowing you to sit in class, how are you supposed to perform in those exams? That definitely means that you're not going to do well, and eventually you get out of school and the society feels you don't deserve some rights, or some, like your family might feel that you don't deserve to go to university and you need to start working. So we find that these young women have started working at a very tender age. So we've really focused on the teenage mothers.
That's a great example. And when we sat at breakfast a couple of mornings ago, I was telling them that I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, in the United States. I graduated from high school in 1991. I know, it's before many of you were born. And there was a daycare center on my high school campus. There were so many teenage mothers, and the school's absolute unwillingness to not let those girls come back to school and not go to school up until the time they delivered their babies. So I sort of think back on that. At the time, it seemed normal. I assumed every high school did that. It turns out it was just an initiative of my independent school district and not across San Antonio, unfortunately. But so that story really resonated with me when Sudi talked about working with that population. And Natasha.
For me, I think one of the biggest marginalizations that we often ignore, but they have a huge impact on young people, is young people living in hard-to-reach places, in distant places, places that are outside the line of rail. Those young people are the ones that really need us to get to. And as Copper Rose, throughout the year, we had been trying to mobilize resources so that we can get to the hard-to-reach young people. And I'm happy to say that starting this month, we are starting a rural project. It's not an SRHR project, but we're going to use that as an avenue to continue doing sexual and reproductive health work. And so hard-to-reach young people are really marginalized, and I think we really should pay attention to them. Because if we can get Coca-Cola to a distant place, why can't we get condoms there? And that's my biggest motivation, to make sure that we get that done.
Great. Excellent. Yordi?
One of the greatest successes of our work has been the fact that we work in an alliance as well, with a collaboration with other organizations who have different specialties. So in one of the alliances, which is the Yes I Do Alliance. Anybody from the Yes I Do Alliance here? There you go. So with the Yes I Do Alliance, we work in the rural parts of Ethiopia as well, which is also where we have a youth council, which works there. So these young people come from that area and know their community very well. So they know the context better than anyone. And at first they had an issue because it was a bunch of young boys and girls who are getting together once a week and discussing maybe half a day or a whole day. And the community came out and said, what the hell are these young people doing? And they were banned from doing anything. But what has worked there has been the fact that the community leaders were on board, religious leaders were on board, government representatives were on board, so they were able to go back into the community and convince them that these young people are there for them, to get things done for them. So they've been doing fantastic work on stopping over 17 child marriages in their community. They have done fantastic work in stopping traditional female genital mutilation in their area. All of them, by the way, which is amazing, in just 6 months' time. And they've done so much work in trying to stop teenage pregnancy that comes because of child marriages. And this is their own initiative that has been supported by so many organizations working together in the same area. Another alliance is the Get Up Speak Out Alliance, which is the GUSO Alliance. And there we have the Family Guidance Association, which works also on youth-friendly services, which they've developed an amazing, so the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Manual is also translated in Braille, and they have amazing people that work also on giving sign language trainings for people with hearing impairments. So this has been some amazing work that our alliance members have been doing as well. So it's good to be partnering up with other people that have special qualities within their work. So it's been very successful with us as well.
That's great, and I just want to pull out that in 2 of Yordi's interventions, you talked about your organization's approach of really being intentional about listening to young people's lived experience, making sure that they're at the center of a community strategy because no one knows the community better than they do. You also talked earlier about letting young people work on stuff that they're interested in, and we all know that in our day jobs, we have parts of our job we like better than others, and that we are extraordinarily good at the stuff that we're most interested and passionate about. It may not be what you're allowed to do all 8 hours every day when you're at your office, but I think it's a great way to get people started in their professional careers, is to show them the skills you can bring when you're really also bringing a lot of interest and passion. So before I turn it to the audience, because I know there's questions out there, I just want to be sure that, having been at a meeting last week that was talking about abortion stigma, that we put a very pointed question about abortion on the panel here. And so I'd love for you each to speak about the work that you've done with your organizations, if it's been something that you've been able to work on in your context, national or subnational. What does that look like with young people? What does it look like in Zambia, Ethiopia, and Kenya? If you can give us a snapshot or an experience on the issue of abortion. Natasha, we'll start with you.
Abortion is a very sensitive subject, especially in Zambia, because first of all, Zambia is a Christian nation, but our abortion laws are very liberal. Well, they have conditions, but really when you look at it, all the conditions that anyone can think of can fit in the way that the law has been set. The main issue has been in people having information that they can get an abortion. And the second thing has been that one of the requirements is that 2 medical doctors have to sign the form for you to get an abortion. So those are the 2 main barriers. But one of the biggest barriers is information. As Copper Rose, we have not yet started working on abortion, but that's something we're thinking of. And one way that we thought we could do it is increasing awareness about what the law says and policy communication activities. Policy communication activities would be useful, first of all, for the young people, but even for the healthcare providers. Because being a medical doctor myself, I see how some of my friends go like, no, it's not legal. And I'm like, no, it is. And if the provider that's supposed to give you the service doesn't know that it's legal, then it becomes a problem. So that's the abortion landscape in Zambia. From recent statistics, 30% of maternal deaths are due to unsafe abortions. And that's why I think it's a very important issue that shouldn't be ignored regardless of how we feel about the way things should be.
Right. And you're pulling off of a point that Sudi made earlier, that there is a real gap sometimes between what people are aware of and what their information is and what the laws and policies say. And the reason you hear that at every conference you go to is because that work around connecting people to information and education and their rights is ongoing work that will happen for as long as you are in this community doing the work that you do. So don't get bored by that intervention. Know that that is just the facts. And no matter if you're a researcher or an advocate or a politician or a campaigner, that you will always have to be dedicated to connecting people to what is available to them, what the laws say, what their rights are, and making sure that they're in a position to be fully empowered and to advance those rights. So you'll hear that again and again, so get used to it. Yordi, your turn.
With our law, it changed in, I think, 2005, correct me if I'm wrong, my Ethiopian colleagues, but it had changed to become very liberal. And since then, actually, the rates of abortion have plummeted, then increase, but it's because people are getting access to legal abortion as well. So it has about 4 or 5 requirements to be able to get access to safe abortion. One of it, which is incest. The other one is rape. The other would be if it causes health issues to the mother herself. And I've forgotten the other.
Fetal
mental health problems.
Mental health.
Yeah, so with these, and then also there's the age. If she's a 15 or below 15, she can get access to safe abortion in any health service provider's office. And nobody ever checks their IDs. So there's also that. But with that, access to safe abortion has been really has increased with regards to uptake, given the fact that illegal abortion has dropped. But other than that, the information provision has been well done, so it's been doing really well, relatively speaking.
Great, thank you for that. Sudi?
I think in Kenya, abortion is quite an emotive subject, because I remember when we were setting up our constitution, it was a big fight and a controversial issue, because there was this fight between the religious leaders and the conservative society and the liberal community that is coming up in Kenya. So our constitution allows for abortion on medical grounds, but still most of the people are not aware of this. And I've seen, us as Women Promotion Center, what we do is that we make the community aware, or make the people that you're working with aware, because you find that in the environment that you work with, there's so many rape cases, and some of these girls just keep quiet and don't get medical assistance, don't get checked, and just that's what we've been doing, making them aware that if anything happens to you and you feel you're uncomfortable and you feel you're not ready for it, then you can seek assistance from the various, like Mary Stops is doing a very good job back in our home, because like recently they've been even running radio advertisements on if you're pregnant and feel you're not ready for it, you can come to us. And I'm really happy about that, because now it's on radio and these people are able to know that it's accessible and it's not something that you need your society to approve. If it's a personal decision, I believe.
Thank you for that.
May I talk
Yes,
that
Yordi,
off?
please.
Yesterday, the Packard Foundation opened up a Quality Innovation Challenge, and my colleagues and I had applied for maybe how we can follow up on checking the quality of safe abortion that is happening right now. So fingers crossed by the 15th we get good responses, but that's also one of the things that we're thinking about working on.
That's great. The Packard Foundation has been a real champion of this work around quality and rights. And I want to thank the panel for taking that question. It wasn't something that we had discussed ahead of time, but I also think that it's important that we lift up an issue and that we work with each other to understand our organization's responsibility to working on that as a part of the continuum of sexual and reproductive health and rights. So thank you all panelists. And now to our esteemed audience. I think we have roving microphones, so if you raise your hand, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and your organization in your country. I have a man here in blue, right in the sort of third or fourth row back. I have one here, you're second, and then right here in the front, you're our third question. We'll take these three, and then give the panelists, I've told them that they don't have the responsibility to answer every single question unless it's directed at them. Otherwise, they'll sort of take a stab at sort of 1, 2, or 3 of the questions, and then we'll put it back to the audience in our remaining time, okay? So first question here, please.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir accordé la parole. I'm so sorry, my English is not very good. I will ask my question in French, please.
In French?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have something?
Donc, j'étais en train de dire que je suis Brady Bilala de la République démocratique du Congo, country coordinator de l'Alliance internationale de jeunes pour la planification familiale en RDC. Et en cette qualité, je suis aussi en train de coordonner le projet YOUAccess en RDC qui se base sur la prévention de mariage précoce en RDC. Cependant, au regard de différentes interventions, j'aimerais faire un commentaire et 2 questions. Je commence par
Seulement une question.
Ah, seulement une question.
Merci.
Mais cette question aura 2 volets alors. Ok. Par rapport aux commentaires, je suis très content du fait que vous avez soulevé le volontariat tout au long de vos différentes interventions et j'aimerais vraiment marteler sur ça. C'est que en Afrique, de manière générale, les volontariats que j'ai liés avec les bénévolats, moi je les considère comme étant une qualité parce que la plupart des jeunes africains, de manière générale, n'ont pas cette facilité-là de faire du volontariat. Parce qu'ils se disent, bon voilà, je dois chercher l'argent, je dois faire ceci, cela. Donc ils n'ont pas cette culture, même cette envie-là. À chaque temps qu'on leur invite dans une activité, la première des questions qu'ils nous posent, est-ce que vous allez nous payer là-bas? Est-ce qu'il y aura ceci, cela? Si tu dis non, viens, c'est pour la bonne cause, viens faire les bénévolats ou les volontariats. Là, c'est vraiment très difficile. Et donc, quand je me rencontre en face des gens qui prennent le volontariat, du coup, j'encourage. Et donc, coup de chapeau à nos différentes leaders, Yordi et les autres qui, dans leurs différentes structures, martèlent sur le volontariat et encouragent à ce que le jeune puisse œuvrer plus dans cela. Cependant, la question est la suivante. Oui, j'avais dit une question, mais avec 2 volets. Le premier volet de ma question est que, il est vrai, au regard des différentes activités que vous avez y amenées, c'est qu'il y a eu un changement. Parce que, quel est ce changement-là? Pouvez-vous nous dire le changement réel qu'a apporté vos différentes activités à l'égard de jeunes dans vos différents pays? Et comment est-ce que ces changements-là a eu un impact au niveau de la communauté et au niveau de votre vie personnelle? Ça, c'est le premier volet de ma question. Le deuxième volet rapporte sur l'avortement. Il est vrai qu'en Afrique, la question d'avortement pose vraiment problème dans certains pays parce que ce n'est pas encore dépénalisé. En RDC, grâce au protocole de Maputo, qui est les questions d'avortement à travers l'article 14 du protocole de Maputo, qu'on commence un peu à parler de l'avortement. Au début, c'était un peu difficile. Est-ce que c'est aussi le cas dans vos différents pays? Est-ce que le protocole de Maputo est déjà aussi en exercice dans vos pays ou pas? Merci.
Wonderful. Thank you for that question. I'll do a quick summary for those who didn't have headphones and my French didn't quite keep up with me. Number 1, just a comment about the volunteers was part of the question. We are going to the second and third, but just so people sort of track. Question about volunteers and how in really resource-constrained settings, how difficult it is to get volunteers to volunteer without getting paid. And so a reflection there, a reflection on child marriage, a question about what difference your organization has made, a very concrete difference. And then a part of that also is the impact that your work has had on you personally. So maybe a story around that. And then of course linking, and I thank you for that, linking the issue of safe abortion to the Maputo Protocol. So a lot of questions wrapped into that. Merci, monsieur. All right, second, here, please.
Oui. Merci. Mon nom, c'est Josepha Avosse. Okay. Je suis docteur en sociologie des religions. Je suis conseiller technique pour la santé sexuelle et de la reproduction des adolescents et jeunes à la plateforme TCI de l'Afrique de l'Ouest francophone. Je suis basé à Dakar. J'étais très intéressé par les interventions, merci, et surtout par la question de l'avortement. Les lois, dans tous les pays sont presque les mêmes. On a juste, pour ne pas frustrer trop, dit il y a exception. Et les exceptions c'est ce qui est rare qui est exception. Donc comme on sait que c'est l'exception et que ça ne va pas arriver, on accepte. Donc dans toutes les lois en Afrique de l'Ouest francophone par rapport à l'avortement, il y a l'ouverture par rapport à l'inceste, par rapport au viol et autres. Mais combien de personnes, bien sûr, c'est des situations qu'il ne faut pas souhaiter. Et si ça arrivait, il faut qu'on ait des mesures. Mais combien de personnes sont victimes de l'inceste à comparer au nombre de jeunes de moins de 15 ans, filles qui tombent enceintes et qui ne voudraient pas garder cette grossesse. Les lois ne sont pas toujours fortes pour aller jusqu'à ce niveau. Ma question est celle-ci. Est-ce que vraiment, en Éthiopie, des personnes âgées de moins de 15 ans
Et votre question?
C'est ça. Est-ce que réellement, en Éthiopie, des personnes âgées de moins de 15 ans et qui tombent enceintes peuvent effectivement avoir accès aux services d'avortement? Bizarrement, j'ai bien entendu, mais je repose la question. Est-ce qu'on a atteint un niveau où on peut avoir les cabinets d'offres des services d'avortement de manière officielle? Merci.
Thank you for that, sir. Also a question, a sociologist from Dakar, a question around abortion and around efforts to further liberalize abortion laws across Africa, and asking questions around the ability to obtain an abortion under the age of 15 in Ethiopia. So we may be able to answer that question specifically, or we might follow up with those who are working on that issue specifically after the session. So thank you. Our third question here. No, it was right here in the third row, right behind Elisha. Yeah, I'm sorry, right here, Elisha, will you point to the woman right behind you? No, right behind you, Elisha. There we go. That's the woman I made eye contact with, and I promised you the third. Here you go.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm Mia from Madagascar, and I'm the coordinator of the sexual and reproductive health in the national movement of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. So my question is, have you faced any challenges in doing such beautiful project addressing girls and young people in our country? And if you have, can you share with us? Because we are here not only to share, but exchanging experience. So, and if you had, can you share, and how did you overcome these challenges? Thank you.
Great. That was actually a question. We started with our successes and achievements, but we didn't have a chance to ask about challenges. So a great variety of questions. We don't have to answer all questions by all panelists. So which one of you would like to start with either answering a question around personal impact or challenges? Yordi, you want to start off?
With regards to the first question, there's also a mention about how volunteers are very rare, and everybody expects some form of payment. With us, our volunteers, you can talk to some of our volunteers here as well. Our positive reinforcement with us, or the incentive, is the fact that you get skills. Mm-hmm. So the capacity building that we work on, are skills that are employable, that makes that person employable. So it's a good incentive to get young people involved, because at the end of the day, everybody does want to get paid. So the change in the community, I've mentioned it earlier, we were able to stop female genital mutilation, traditional female genital mutilation workers by 100%. We have had our own volunteers stop marriages of their own siblings, and then continue on to go on into their communities and stop the work that's being done on marrying off their younger siblings. But they're also noticing that the loopholes that their community is using, for example, in big traditional holidays, there's big festivities once a month or so in the community, and some people use that to marry off their young child by hiding it as part of a traditional other religious holiday. So the young people spot that out and they stop it themselves. So it's also been some of the great successes that we've had in changing our community. With regards to my personal life, I'm very happy. I don't know if anything could ever compare to that. Spot on.
This work has had a happiness impact on your life.
Yes, very much so.
Great.
The second question had, is it really impactful with regards to abortion? It's my personal thought. I can't give you statistics because I don't have them right now. But from what we've done on previous projects, before we had other alliance work, like Link Up, where we worked on abortion as well, but giving the knowledge on how young people can access that is itself a very productive way of being able to say, okay, you can get safe access to that. But also, everybody knows that Marie Stopes does wonderful work as well, so we can't neglect the work that they've been doing as well in Ethiopia. So I would like to give a shout out to Marie Stopes and their work in Ethiopia as well. Challenges. The challenges that we've faced has been the fact that most people don't want to listen to young people. It's something I'm sure that all of us face to a different degree, but we do face it. What has been really useful in our work has been the fact that you always find that key personnel that is a young person that is working on some of the issues that you'd like to work on. So they've been really helpful with us. And there's also so many organizations, like the Packard Foundation has been giving so much opportunity for young people. It's a matter of accessing that. But there are people that are key personnel that are able to influence other influencers as well, that are open to working with young people, and accessing or being able to communicate with them has been very useful for us. And to be able to communicate with them itself is platforms such as this, that you get to meet a person one-on-one, and it's been really helpful for our work. I hope that will be useful on what you're doing as well. I think that's about all of the answers I have.
That's excellent. Natasha, you're leaning forward. Are you ready to make a couple of answers to those questions?
Definitely.
Great.
The first question was about volunteers. First of all, I'd like to mention that in order to work with volunteers, you need to show them that you're passionate about what you're doing. Sometimes people join just because they see how much passion you have. Also, in terms of resources, that's mainly, young people need to live and eat as well, and they need the money. So when the organization has funds, it's important to find a way of helping volunteers with like transport refunds, like how to get home. But also one other thing that motivates volunteers very well is if you connect them to other opportunities that can actually give them money. So some of our volunteers, we get them to youth conferences, we help them apply for other opportunities and other fellowships, and that makes them want to keep coming back to do work with Copper Rose. One other thing, which also goes to the question you've asked about what difference have you made, some of our volunteers are now part of our staff, and now they have full-time jobs, and they have real jobs, and unemployment is a big issue, so dealing with that really is a way in which we've made a difference. But also with volunteers, it's very important that you are very honest with them about the work that they're getting into. And we've had people drop out on the first day, and that's okay. It's better to drop out on the first day than drop out 1 month into the program. So if you're really honest with them, it's not very good if they see you getting rich and then you tell them you have no money. But if you're honest with them from the beginning that they're not going to get paid, but you connect them to other opportunities, that's really good. We also do leadership training within our volunteers program. So even if it's a peer educators program on SRH or on child marriage, we also do leadership training, and that really attracts them to our program. Now, the question I'll answer after this also is challenges being faced and how we overcame the challenges. Our biggest challenge is resources, human resource, financial resources. We are often supporting young people, but oftentimes it's just other kinds of support outside financial. But like I said, young people need to live and eat as well, and that's one of our biggest challenges. And another challenge is a lack of technical knowledge. You go to this technical working group, everyone is using acronyms the whole time. And you're there, and you take these young people there to the meeting, and they don't know what's being said. So, the whole sentence is on using acronyms, and sometimes that it becomes difficult. So how we've been able to deal with this is we've connected ourselves to mentors. We found mentors within these spaces. One, people that have been running their own organizations and they're not youth anymore. I'd like to shout out to Amos Mwale from Center for Reproductive Health and Education. I don't know if he's here, but people like that have helped us walk through this journey, like people that have just left the youth bracket and have been doing youth work. So that is how we've overcome it. Even relationship building as well. That is very useful for young people. You need to build relationships with not only the people older, but even your fellow young people. Some youth-led organizations are doing really well. So learning with them, meeting up with them. Like I have 3 times a week just for coffee to meet with people and learn as much as I can. And I do that every week. So try doing that. I think that will help you get past the challenges. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Sudi, your opportunity to answer some of those questions.
My colleagues have answered most of the questions, and as they say, youth and women issues are like common across the board, because we find that getting young people to work with us, most of them is just about building relationship and making them feel that they are part of what you're doing. It creates the passion, because sometimes you don't give them a salary, but just make sure that people have some small money to commute and come to maybe where you're meeting or working, and also just some small money from the fund that we normally get from our partners, and maybe call or do stuff like that. So the little that we have, we share with them. And also, as we work with the young women and young men across, we try to build an economic empowerment kind of mentality, whereby we talk of ways in which we can empower ourselves economically in terms of maybe doing small things, how to make things and maybe sell and make some small money, how to start a small kind of business here and there, so that we can empower. Because we find that, to answer the question of challenge, the main challenge we as young people face is we lack resources or money, I would say, because you'd find that when you go for the big meetings, sometimes they set them so deep where you can only go maybe with a car or a taxi, and you can't make it, or in an expensive hotel, and they keep saying, where are the young people? You say they'll be here. They never show up, you see? So that's the biggest challenge we get. So if you have your small resources, you can afford to mingle, or even just approach these senior guys or senior leaders in our different government offices, and that's what we've been doing. I'd also like to respond on the issue of what keeps me going or what makes me happy. Initially, I didn't mention, when I finished university, I went to start working in a corporate organization, and it was all stressful, and you'd come home and you fear even going back to work because of the numbers and everything. But when I started working with young women and seeing the difference or the changes I'm making in someone's personal life, because you'd start working with someone when they're in maybe low-level school and graduate, and you build opportunities, and eventually they're coming back to you and they're like, I'm graduating, can you come from my graduation party? And it's really self-fulfilling, and when you go to bed every day, you just smile and you're happy. So that's what really keeps me moving in this field.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So we're coming to the end of time, and I wanted to do another round of questions, but you have to promise me that you will only ask a question. So no comments, no point A, B, and C, just a quick question, and I'll take 3 of them, so then we're able to hear from more of you in the audience. So we have our first question here in the middle section, wearing kind of lime green. Somebody's coming up with a microphone, or could you bring? She's coming, thank you. I know it's an important, oh, no, over here, I'm sorry if you don't mind, in the green. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm from Bangladesh. This is Nadira. I'm a public health professional. So I would like to, the panelists, that in the morning discussion, we also heard some of the marginalized groups, and you also asked some of the issues on marginalized groups. You know, so I would like to know that in your project, in your country, say adolescent sex worker, drug user, HIV positives, young mothers. So how you are, do you have, still in a position to deal with those very vulnerable conditions, or how you are doing in those critical situations? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So a question about working with some of the most vulnerable communities within the youth population. So we'll go to that question. Is there, right here in front? wearing green pants. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Althea Anderson from the Hewlett Foundation. I am just so inspired by your stories of advancing family planning and the rights of youth and women and girls specifically. As young women who are pursuing professional careers for social change, I'm interested to hear how you feel your positions are shaping or influencing how young people in your communities think about engaging with one another as men and women in schools, at work, and in their lives socially and intimately, how your leadership might be influencing gender norms.
Great question. And last question. Do I see a hand right here in the front? We knew we would get back to you.
Thank you. My name is Alice Bumanzi from Rwanda, working with Plan International. My question is, I'm interested to know if in their interventions you really involve men or boys in what you are doing, because you know that when boys or men are not involved, it is not easy for them to be supportive about SRH girls or women issues. Thank you.
Great. So a question around men and boys, and so I'm going to let each of you just tackle one of those questions. Who would like to go first? Sudi, please start off.
Okay, I'll start with the last question, whereby she asked if we engage men or boys. Initially, we were just working with girls and having chats and peer-to-peer kind of setup, and where we'd call it Sisi ni Madada, which is we are sisters, and we would meet and just talk. But we came to learn that in Kenya, there's this statement that is coming up, and it's an issue that the boy child is under siege. And if we continue empowering the young woman, the boy child is diminishing. And we find we have so many empowered young women in society, but they don't have anyone to relate to or work with in terms of the male gender. So we've started working with young men, also involving them in our activities, and most of the time you'll find that most of the session we want them to be led by men, so that the women can also feel that they are part of it. So it's something we are doing.
Great question. Who's next? Natasha or Yordi, either one? Natasha, kick it off.
Okay. I would like to answer the question on how we are positioning ourselves in our careers and influencing gender norms. So a lot of the work that I do in Zambia is not only with Copper Rose, but I also work with, help other organizations and speak to young people. So I do a lot of speaking opportunities so that I can share my story. And I started this even when I was still a student, so that the story can be something that a young person can relate to. If a fellow student tells you about their journey, it feels more closer to what you think you can do than some woman doctor saying it. But I still do my best to share my story with other people. And you know, sometimes we think people are not watching, but one time I got to the office and I found that 2 of the staff had cut their hair just like mine. Then I realized, okay, I think maybe I need to like watch what I say and what I do, because a lot more people are looking at me as a leader. So that is one way that I'm using my position and my career goes to work with young people. And really, I also am doing a lot of work with the Medical Students Association and other students associations, because I started off from there. My first leadership opportunities were from there, and I want to give back to that as much as possible. I also do some writing for many organizations, blogs, interviews, and that is really sharing my story to show other young people that they can do it too, and it's really simple. But as a leader myself, I'm also looking to other mentors who can help me continue developing my skills so that I don't feel like I'm bigger than I really am, and so that they can remind me of how much more I need to learn so I can give back. Lastly, I also mentor some young people on my team. Like the youngest batch of volunteers is like 15 and 16 and 17, and so I have a mentorship class with them every month, where I work with them and help them like make their own career goals and things like that. So that's one way. Involving men and boys, I'll just say it in one sentence. Copper Rose has a huge menstrual health program, and half of the staff on that, half of the volunteers are boys. So boys are talking about menstruation, boys are sewing sanitary napkins, and that's, I think nothing can be louder than that. Yeah.
All right. Yordi?
Same question I'd like to answer, which is, like Natasha has also said, it's great that you can inspire others. It's amazing to be able to do that. I was also part of Rotaract. I don't know if you know about Rotary International, but with them, I've been a volunteer for more than 5 years, and the person before me was an inspiration, who was also working in my current position in Taya, who was also a Rotaractor, and her name is Yordanos. Some of you might know her. But she's inspired me, and I've been able to inspire others. I remember where somebody had asked me, in Rotaract you can hold different positions, one of which was the presidency eventually. And I was running for presidency, and somebody went, of course you have to run for presidency. Where else would you ever be able to get the title? Now we have an Ethiopian president who's a woman. So anything's possible.
That's right.
Regarding the male engagement, my colleague would be best to answer that. Amy, who is among us, would you be all right to answer that?
Maybe at the end, let's make sure that we connect in the front row, and so that we can talk a little bit more about some male engagement strategies.
Yeah.
And thank you, Althea, for the question. It's clearly one that our leaders were interested in leaning into. What is the responsibility of leadership? How are you challenging norms in your society? And what that responsibility feels like, which is both exciting and exhilarating on some days, and quite frankly, exhausting on other days. And having that kind of truthful conversation about leadership is how we inspire more people to join us. So they know the last question that's coming their way in our final 4 minutes. So while they're thinking of their 1 or 2 sentences, recommendation for the audience that you walk out of this room moved with, I just want to put forward this YOUAccess publication. So this is the stories from a number of the young people and youth-led organizations that PAI has been privileged to support financially and work with on technical assistance and capacity building. And this is at PAI's booth, which is number 24. So come see us there. We've also got some global gag rule office hours that are happening, and a number of case studies that we've done around the impact of the global gag rule in country. So last question, leaving people with inspiration. What is the one recommendation you want to make to this audience and to the ICFP more generally, coming out of your work and your professional and personal experience? And I'm going to let you decide who starts, because if the spirit moves you, lean in.
May I?
Yordi, please.
I feel like I'm volunteering for everything. One of the things that we've all mentioned is the fact that we've been able to engage young people meaningfully. And it always winds up to asking how, or what does meaningfully mean. For us, for the work that we've been doing, it's engaging a young person from the planning or from the inception level to the implementation, to the follow-up, to the monitoring and evaluation. And in every step that you do, young people need to be a part of it. Be it strategically or voluntary, just engage young people, and it becomes a fantastic way to go about it. If you want to know how you can do it yourselves, please go over to the Choice booth as well, who have a section specially dedicated to how you can engage young people meaningfully. So please do go over. Also the PAI booth, which is a fantastic booth.
Thank you. So no excuses, meaningful engagement. We can figure out what it means and how to do it, and that's Yordi's recommendation to take forward. Sudi?
I think my parting shot, or what I really believe in, is I believe in small beginnings, and I feel that each and every one of us, if they can do something in their small setup, definitely the world is going to be a different place, and we're going to see changes. So don't sit down and ask what is someone else doing or what is the government doing. The government might be failing us, our leaders might be failing us, but what are you doing in your small sitting? Maybe you have some information. Are you sharing it with the girl seated next to you? Are you sharing it with your neighbor? Are you aware that your neighbor is maybe not going to school because of maybe 1 or 2 things? So let's do what we can in our small beginnings, our small environment, and definitely at the end, it makes a difference.
I like that, inspiration around small beginnings. Thank you. Natasha, last recommendation for the panel?
My recommendation goes out to all the young women, similar to what Christine has said, but the most important thing is, as young women, let's not look down on ourselves. Let's not feel bad about how it's not easy to get that position, not easy to get on that board, but let's just do it. There are so many excuses not to do something, but we can still do it. Copper Rose started by medical students in like the worst year of medical school, but we still made it. And so, whatever you decide to do, the best time to start was yesterday, but the second best time to start is today. I also want to urge all the parents in this room that you need to let your daughters be what they want to be, even if it's scary. My dad let me start an organization in school, and he was worried half the time, but as parents, we need to be supportive. We need to show our young women that they can do it. And if all the parents in this place can allow their children to fly, that would be the best for this world. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask the audience to join me in applause, not just for our terrific panelists, but for the staff in this room who've set up these tables, hustled around the room with microphones, and helped us share these learnings and inspiration with all of you. Thanks for joining us. Beautifully done.